I'm Dr. Eugenia Gold, and this is Science on the Street. Let's enter a world where, through unforeseen circumstances, events lead you seamlessly from one place to another. Where you might find yourself hearing all sorts of ideas by chance meetings, where you could be working by yourself or with a team, and where all of your efforts feel like they only matter based on the feedback of one person. I am, of course, talking about the process of peer review. Scientists come together to ask questions, design a plan to test for the answer, and spend time writing down their findings. After weeks, months, or many times years, they submit the report to a journal. The journal sends a report to 3 reviewers. Who are these reviewers? Peers, fellow scientists who are working on similar questions and can speak to the methods and conclusions of the new work. Sometimes papers come away with minor revisions and are sent along for publication. Other times, this review process is almost like walking through the Sphinx Gate in the Never-Ending Story, hoping that our papers are deemed thoughtful enough to not be blasted by laser eyes. Run, Atreyu, run! And even though those laser eyes feel spiteful, this part of the process is necessary to ensure that scientific papers are reliable. Today, we'll briefly discuss the history of peer review, its importance to the scientific process, issues that have arisen, and how they are being addressed. Peer review was formalized around 300 years ago by the Royal Society of Edinburgh, which published a journal of medical research that was reviewed by other scientists. Before that, papers were reviewed only by the editor, who had final say on whether the work was published or not. Despite its early start, it wasn't made the norm until after World War II. You may be wondering why we even need this process. Science builds on itself. To ensure that it builds properly, other scientists read the work and judge its dependability and accuracy based on their own research and knowledge. This keeps the research done with improper methods or work that overreaches their conclusions from sullying up the flow of information. In this way, science self-corrects, kind of like a squirrel who missed the jump the first time but sticks it on the second. Overreaching leads to a crash, and new ideas and methods have to be tried. Even though the system has been a unifying principle in science, it is not without its flaws. Many times, peer reviewers do not agree on the outcome of the review. Some may suggest minor revisions, while others reject the work entirely. When this occurs, additional reviewers are called in, but often these disagreements persist, delaying the editing and publication process. This happens frequently enough that there are ongoing jokes in academia about the dreaded reviewer number 3 who always disagrees and recommends rejection despite outstanding reviews from the others. Peer review is like Thanksgiving dinner. You're all there to share a good meal, but there's always that one relative who has to disagree and make everything awkward. I'm looking at you, Uncle Bob. Racial and personal bias against authors has been shown to reduce the publication of work by underrepresented groups. To offset this, journals have started blinding portions of the review. This is when the reviewer is unable to see who wrote the paper, though in some cases both the author and reviewer are unaware of each other's identities. This can help eliminate some aspects of bias. However, sometimes the research is done by so few that the identities of the authors are unable to be hidden. Double-blind reviews are like a blind date. Both the author and the reviewers are going into the process without knowing each other's identities and hoping to make a good impression. And just like in dating, sometimes the chemistry is there, and sometimes it's just not. We rely on reviewers to catch fraudulent work, but in studies where errors were purposefully placed, reviewers only caught a small portion of them. This is obviously a problem, and explains why it can take so long to uncover fraudulent scientific work. Reviewers sometimes act as gatekeepers of scientific integrity, working like the Sphinxes to blast improper work, but sometimes they're more like sleepy guards who miss the thieves sneaking in through the door of fraudulent research. Even though peer review is far from a perfect system, it has smoothed the process of science so that the majority of published work is reliable and accurate. This is vital for the continuation of science as a whole. So remember, peer review is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, and you will only really like one of them. Science on the Street is brought to you by the Suffolk University College of Arts and Sciences and filmed in Studio 73.